All right, what is going on? Mr. Koble back with another history video. For those of you that don't know, I'm a 7th grade US world history teacher and an 8th grade US history teacher in San Diego, California. And today we are going to be covering two topics. We're going to be covering the Boston Massacre, and we are going to be covering the Patriots and Loyalists, the two factions that break out in America right before the war. So without further ado, we're going to start with the Boston Massacre, and it's going to get bloody. The real activity we would do is we'd figure out who's responsible for everything that happened that day in Boston, but that's not going to happen today because it's going to be a little different. For those of you, since a lot of you actually don't know where Boston is, first of all, I've been lovely city, better than New York, hot take. So Boston is it's a city in the state of Massachusetts. So Massachusetts, we know, is a northern colony. It's right up here. It has the little lip, the cape that comes out, makes a little hook. That is Massachusetts. So Massachusetts is here, and as you get farther down along the coast, you get to the middle colonies and then the southern colonies. But we're talking about Boston. Boston is in the northern colony, which is right here. If you ever get to go and stand where the Boston Massacre happened, it's pretty cool. Anyway, we are talking about Boston, Massachusetts, where a lot of the revolutionaries in the war are going to come from. A lot of the spur to fight started in Boston. So anyway, Boston Massacre, we are going to watch first. Oh, you gotta be killing me. Ugh, unbelievable. Okay, well, that's a bummer. But anyway, Boston Massacre, long story short, these British troops are walking around Boston in 1770, and they're getting heckled a little bit by some of the Boston citizens. Eventually, the citizens start throwing snowballs at them, and then start throwing rocks, and it starts getting a little bit mad. And in all the chaos, someone hears fire, and all the British troops open fire on the colonists that are around them, and about 7 die. So you can see this is a painting of the Boston Massacre that got published everywhere in America by Paul Revere. So he depicted it as, British troops standing in a line, ready to fire, and willfully firing at Boston citizens. This isn't exactly what happened. The reason that he painted it that way is because he wants to demonize the British and get more support for people to become patriots. This is probably a more accurate depiction of what happened. So you can see in this one, British troops are kind of standing around, they're cornered, they're a bit scared, colonists are around them, it's getting a little bit violent, it's getting a little bit hazy. You see a couple are dead on the floor after the shots rang out. You can see it's not exactly as malicious and dastardly as the painting that Paul Revere made. So a little bit different analytics. So basically, long story short, reason this is important, Paul Revere sends this picture to every single big newspaper in the colonies, and it basically gets everywhere. A lot of more people become patriots and become very frustrated with Britain after this piece of propaganda, which is intentionally biased and misleading, promotes hatred against the British. So this is like a very American piece of propaganda. The assignment you normally have is create your own piece of propaganda, but we're not going to do that. And that's going to take us to the Patriots and Loyalists debate. So to be a patriot or not to be a patriot? That's the question we're asking here. As the war waged on, a lot of the colonists had to decide whether they become a patriot and they separate from Britain and join the Continental Army, or they become a loyalist and stay under the control of the British king and support the British Army. So two very distinct groups. One wants to leave Britain, the other wants to stay with Britain. So if you're patriots, you're loyalists, and a lot of people are undecided. In fact, honestly, about a third of people didn't even really care. about whether to be a patriot or loyalist. A third of them, it didn't affect their life. You know, if you're a farmer out on the western plains of Pennsylvania, why would you care about what happens in New York or Boston? Um, so it really depended on where you were, what your status was, where you lived. Depends if you're a patriot or loyalist or you didn't care. But it's around a third split for all three of them. Now, what do they look like? Because when I think of patriot, you know, you think of different things. You can think of Tom Brady, but I don't like Tom Brady. But patriots during this time, in the 1770s, tended to be poor. They tended to be recent immigrants. They mostly lived in Virginia or New York or the New England colonies. So if you're in the New England colonies like Boston, there's going to be a lot of patriots there. If you're in the middle colonies, you know, it may be half and half depending on where you are. If you're in New York City, you're probably going to see a lot more patriots. If you're in big cities in Virginia, you're going to see more patriots. The farther away you go, you'll either see more loyalists or you'll see people who just don't care because it doesn't affect them that much. And then the big thing with patriots is they have nothing to lose with independence. They have everything to gain in terms of political autonomy and voting for themselves, but they have absolutely nothing. They don't really have anything to lose if they break off, you know, aside from dying if they die. And then throughout this whole thing, they are basically the underdogs. This is why America has this whole fascination with the underdog, and we love to root for the underdog because we kind of started out this way. So once again, patriots, you know, poor, nothing to lose. Let's fight for our independence. Mostly in the North and Middle too. And then it takes us to loyalists. So loyalists are the opposite. They are rich. They have roots in Britain. They have businesses with Britain. They have a lot to lose by going to war with Britain. They don't want to do that. So they tend to be, you know, educated in like British colleges. They tend to be wealthy. They tend to be older. They have land. They benefit from being under the British crown. They have close businesses or ties to Britain. So these people have everything to lose. And this is kind of what they look and sound like. I like this clip. Oh, I need to share computer sound, don't I? Yeah, I do. Right, there we go. Oh, hello. Oh, no. Just want to play the clip.
Oh, hello to you, sirs. And to you, ladies.
These heels are almost impossible to walk in.
Well, get over it, dude. You gotta walk in, okay? Now, let me hear the voice.
No, I don't think that the voice is entirely necessary, so I'm not gonna do it.
If we're gonna wipe away all traces of our colonial background and blend in with British culture, we need to walk the walk and we need to talk the talk.
Fine, how do you do it?
Your voice needs to come off as elegant as your clothing, okay? So, try this. Would you like a spot of tea? You. Yes.
Would you like a spot of tea? Yes.
Draw it out more.
Draw it out more than that.
Yes, yes.
More than that. Yes.
Yeah, but
that's good.
You know what, man? Those wooden teeth are killing me, man. That lisp is stupid.
Well, I think the wooden teeth is the whole thing that's saving this thing.
You
for
sound
me.
ridiculous.
No, I don't. I think it sounds pretty good. I'm not losing the teeth. Let's just move past that.
Let's keep walking. Okay, try it again. Try it again.
Yes.
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 Good, good, good. Now, flourish the pinky.
Flourish the pinky.
Yeah.
Well, what have we got here? A pair of puffs about town. Sodomites in frilly lace.
No. Nath. Oh, Nath. Hello. We are simply two noble Britishmen out on a stroll.
Yes.
Good day, sir.
Good day.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what I think of when I think of loyalists. I think of yes. So those are your loyalists. Everything to lose, and they are wealthy. All right, and then so the actual debate was difficult because it's this huge risk to separate with Britain, and it's going to be violent, and it's going to be bloody. And a lot of the Southern colonists actually didn't want, a lot of Southern colonists tend to be loyalists. They weren't in the fray. They were a lot more, they didn't have as many big cities. They didn't feel as oppressed as maybe the northern groups felt. So you'll see that in this video.
Our first order of business.
And our last, if we vote a levy.
Order! Mr. Sims, you do not have the floor. Our first order of business will be an address by Colonel Harry Burwell of the Continental Army. Colonel Burwell.
You all know why I'm here. I'm not an orator, and I would not try to convince you of the worthiness of our cause. I'm a soldier, and we are at war. From Philadelphia, we expect a declaration of independence. 8 of the 13 colonies have levied money in support of a continental army. I ask that South Carolina be the 9th.
Massachusetts and Virginia may be at war, but South Carolina is not. Hear, hear.
This is not a war for the independence of 1 or 2 colonies, but for the independence of 1 nation.
And, yes, what nation is that?
An American nation.
There is no such nation, and to speak of one is treason.
We are citizens of an American nation, and our rights are being threatened by a tyrant 3,000 miles away.
Would you tell me, please, Mr. Howard, why should I trade 1 tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? An elected legislature can trample a man's rights as easily as a king can.
Captain Martin, I understood you to be a patriot.
If you mean by patriot, am I angry about taxation without representation? Well, yes, I am. Should the American colonies govern themselves independently? I believe they can, and they should. But if you're asking me, am I willing to go to war with England? Well, then the answer is most definitely no.
This from the same Captain Benjamin Martin, whose fury was so famous during the Wilderness Campaign?
I was intemperate in my youth.
Temperance can be a convenient disguise for fear.
Mr. Middleton, I fought with Captain Martin under Washington in the French and Indian War. There's not a man in this room, or anywhere for that matter, to whom I would more willingly trust my life.
Hear, hear.
There are alternatives to war. We take our case before the king. We plead with him.
Yes, we've tried that.
Well, then we try again and again, if necessary, to avoid a war.
Benjamin, I was at Bunker Hill. The British advanced 3 times, and we killed over 700 of them at point-blank range, and still they took the ground. That is the measure of their resolve. If your principles dictate independence, then war is the only way. It has come to that.
I have 7 children. My wife is dead. Now, who's to care for them if I go to war?
Wars are not fought only by childless men.
Granted. But mark my words. This war will be fought not on the frontier or on some distant battlefield, but amongst us, among our homes. Our children will learn of it with their own eyes. And the innocent will die with the rest of us. I will not fight. And because I will not fight, I will not cast a vote that will send others to fight in my stead.
And your principles.
I'm a parent. I haven't got the luxury of principles.
Must vote the levy.
intend to enlist without my permission?
Yes, I do. Father, I thought you were a man of principle.
When you have a family of your own, perhaps you'll understand.
When I have a family of my own, I won't hide behind them.
Ooh. Wrecked.
He's as imprudent as his father was at his age.
Regrettably so.
I'll see to it that he serves under me. Make him a clerk or quartermaster, something of that sort.
Good luck.
Dear Thomas, though many seasons have passed, it seems like only yesterday when we last saw each other in Charlestown. It was with great sadness that I learned of its recent fall to the British under General Cornwallis. I received a letter from Aunt Charlotte telling me she had closed her home in Charlestown after the city fell and moved to her plantation on the Santee.
And you can see it kind of descends into chaos as the British go to fight with him. That is your Loyalists and Patriots. The big takeaways I want you to get out of this. Oh, I just ended the slide. There we go. The big takeaways I wanted you to get out of this were that the Patriots had nothing to lose and tended to be more poor and live in urban areas. And the Loyalists tended to be rich and did have a lot to lose. Yes. All right, I will see you all later. Have a good time. If you need to watch this video multiple times, that's great. And go Padres.